Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed at 1,000 subscribers. I'll be posting a special video. I pushed the chapel door and my breath snagged. Linda faced the aisle in white with my veil pinned. Mark stood at her side like a groom in place. The photographer raised the camera and gave a count. I stepped forward because if I froze, I lost. I'm Mara, 28. My heels clicked like a timer on bad decisions. Linda laced her arm through Mark and lifted her chin. The officiant glanced at me and shuffled his booklet. Someone whispered quiet and kept shooting anyway. Hold for a framing test, the planner waved me back. Linda smiled with teeth and adjusted the bouquet. Mark swallowed and touched his cuff like it mattered. I lifted the veil and my hand shook once. That shake told me I was late to my own scene. Start the vows. Linda faced the altar like a lead. The officiant looked at Mark and then at me. Is this fine? He asked with a careful tone. Mark stared at the floor and gave a small nod. My chest went tight and the room tilted half a degree. I fished my phone and hit record with my thumb. No speeches today, only receipts. Linda took both of his hands and squared her shoulders. Linda, take you. She tried the rhythm. The words landed like coins on my shoe. Stop, I heard my voice before I owned it. The planner flinched and hugged her clipboard. Mark shifted between us like a faulty door. Lighting test, Linda sang and never looked away. Her confidence played like music I did not request. I walked straight to Mark and gripped his wrist. The test ends now. I kept my eyes on his. He did not pull back, which told me everything. She wants a keepsake, his voice scraped low. A keepsake with vows is not a keepsake. The photographer cleared his throat and reset the lens. We are off schedule, the planner checked her watch. Then fix it. I stepped into the aisle. My pulse found a steady drum inside my throat. I would not be staged as extra again. Linda shifted her weight and squared herself to me. You panic under pressure, she softened the words. I covered details so you can enjoy, she blinked slow. Her perfume hit hard and made my eyes sting. I realized she planned even my reactions. Who signed vendor forms under my name? I kept focus. Silence pooled around the altar like a dare. The planner opened her tablet and froze on a page. Authorization arrived from your number, she murmured. My stomach dropped because my number never sent that. I checked the group chat and found a clean lie. Approved by Mara, Linda had posted 2 days ago. Mark left a heart and nothing else. Heat rose fast and bright under my skin. She had rehearsed this long before I arrived. Switch places, I lifted my hand toward the aisle. I want a real run with the actual bride. Mark did not move, he blinked and stared past me. Linda squeezed his fingers with a small warning. The officiant set his booklet down and waited. Say whose wedding this is, I kept my tone even. Mark dragged in air and looked at the pews. Mom asked for one moment, his voice thinned out. She wants a symbolic pass down the aisle. Symbolic felt like a hook disguised as ribbon. I stepped closer until my shoulder brushed his sleeve. One moment ends when my name is forged. One moment ends when vows become prop lines. Linda smiled wider and did not release him. The photographer lowered the camera and watched like a witness. We can reset, the planner offered a fragile nod. After this shot, Linda tilted her head like a queen. No, I reached for the mic on the stand. My finger clicked it live and the feedback popped. Every head turned and the room finally listened. This rehearsal stops until my consent is honored. My voice carried clean across the pews. Any vendor using my name without me is done. The officiant straightened and closed his booklet. Linda's eyes went cold and interested. Mark rubbed his temple and chose the carpet. He had 2 seconds to step to me. He took one, then none. I watched him freeze like a habit he loved. Somewhere in me, a door swung on a rusty hinge. Pick a side, Mark, I did not raise volume. He looked at his mother and then at me. His mouth opened and nothing good came out. The planner whispered to the photographer to keep rolling. Evidence first, forgiveness maybe never. Linda laughed once and aimed it at my heart. You are sensitive, she brushed an invisible speck from lace. You will thank me when the photos look perfect. I imagined future frames with me edited out. That picture sat like a dare I refused to swallow. I slipped off my ring and closed my fist around it. Not a breakup, a pressure check. I pressed it into Mark's palm without ceremony. Boundaries by tomorrow, or this ceremony dissolves. The ring felt heavier in his hand than in mine. He stared at the gold like it bit through skin. Please give me a day, he whispered toward the floor. Linda moved closer as if to shield him. I stepped back and killed the mic W. With a click. We had entered the part of the story that hurts. I closed the mic and walked straight for the side door. The hinges groaned like they disapproved of my spine. Behind me chairs scraped and whispers piled up fast. I kept moving because hesitation feeds doubles. If I paused, she would script the next beat. The coordinator caught up at the corridor bend. Her tablet glowed and her hands trembled. You wanted documents, she breathed through tight teeth. Audit trail, every approval now. My tone held because fear loves soft targets. We stopped by a small console outside the hall. She opened vendor portals and swiped to signatures. A green check pulsed beside my name like a taunt. I tapped the timestamp and took photos in bursts. My phone filled with proof that should not exist. An alert chimed from her screen like a siren. Account authorization changed 10 minutes ago. By whom? I did not blink. She turned the screen and swallowed hard. The number matched mine with one swapped digit. Spoved clean and cheap. I inhaled once and let the anger sharpen. Freeze all access except mine. She hesitated, then toggled every switch. Control returned like a breath underwater. A call flashed with the florist's name. I stepped into the vestibule for one quiet block. We received an instruction to adjust the arch. What instruction? My thumb pressed the frame until it hurt. Mother of groom requested her arrangement front and center. Do not change a stem without me. I forced patience into each word like threading wire. Resend the request that authorized you. A screenshot arrived with a cheerful note. The sender handle matched the fake number exactly. The shooter drifted near with the camera at his chest. I need model releases resigned, I told him. Any image with me requires my explicit consent. He searched my face and gave a careful nod. Then today's frames are drafts until you approve. Back in the aisle, the minister shuffled papers. I raised a hand and stopped at the first row. This run pauses under breach, I stated for the room. Consent is compromised and rights are suspended. The sentence landed like a hammer on a bell. She laughed from the front with her veil still fixed. She loves drama, her knuckles whitened on the bouquet. Heads turned like weather vanes in an ugly wind. I tracked Mark instead of her show. He stood pinned between loyalty and gravity. Hallway now, I angled my chin toward the exit. He followed 2 steps behind like he wanted cover. The door closed and the noise fell off a cliff. I gave you a line yesterday, I told him. You crossed it before the ink cooled. He stared at the ring still warming his palm. I froze out there, his voice scratched like gravel. I thought a tiny favor would calm things. Your tiny favor rewrote my place at the altar. He leaned back against the wall as if it would hold him. Here are my terms in writing, I typed and showed him. No proxy approvals, no staged vows, no substitutions. You confirm now and send it to the team. His thumbs hovered and then finally moved. The notification pinged on my phone like a start shot. She appeared at the end of the corridor with a smile. Pictures look empty without me, she purred like a cat. Step away from our logistics, I told her. I just secured accounts tied to my identity. Her lips twitched and the axe slipped at the edges. She raised her phone and snapped our standoff. Followers love behind the scenes, she cooed without blinking. Mark flinched and reached slowly for her arm. I lifted my camera and recorded her recording. Mirrors can be useful when truth dodges light. The venue manager arrived with a hard jaw. We need compliance with the client list, she announced. Access only for the 2 principals today. I held her gaze to seal the alliance. Linda smiled wider, which meant new trouble was loading. Then make me a principal, she chirped at the desk. Add me for safety and oversight. Request denied, the manager replied without blinking. Non-clients cannot direct staff or ceremony elements. A single beat of silence stretched like wire. Linda pivoted to Mark with a soft plea. "Tell them I co-host," her fingers curled on his sleeve. He looked from her to me and did not speak. The manager waited like a referee with a whistle. This was his test and mine at once. He exhaled and took one deliberate step toward me. "I acknowledge the boundary agreement," he announced. "Only we approve anything tied to our ceremony." I watched his shoulders lower as if a weight fell. Her mouth tightened like a knot pulled the wrong way. "Great," I said and faced the manager. "Please escort non-approved parties to the lobby." The manager gestured and two staff members approached. Linda did not move, which forced a harder choice. I braced for the backlash that always follows limits. She swiped the veil off her head and shoved it at me. "Take your costume," she hissed with a brittle laugh. The lace caught on my wrist and scratched skin. That sting anchored me in the only reality that mattered. I let the fabric drop where her performance started. "Rehearsal resumes with the actual couple," the manager announced. Half the room exhaled as if granted permission to breathe. I walked back to the aisle with my heart steady. Mark matched my pace without glancing sideways. We reached the front like people arriving by choice. The minister lifted his notes and waited for my signal. "Begin with the procession only," I directed with clear tone. "No vows, no mock exchanges, no staged intimacy." The path remained mine even with cameras watching. I stood where I belonged and held that ground. The officiant lowered his folder and raised a hand. "We cannot rehearse the declaration," his voice held. "The county portal shows a filed intent with mismatched names." Heat snapped through me like a wire pulled tight. This was not a glitch, this was placement. "Show me the entry," I stepped close to the lectern. He angled the tablet and scrolled with careful thumbs. Bridefield displayed a different first name and a hyphen. An upload icon pulsed with a recent timestamp. A copy of identification waited behind that icon. I tapped the upload and braced for the face. The image loaded with a blur where it mattered. My surname sat under a stranger's photo. The signature slanted almost like mine, almost. Close enough for comfort, not close enough for court. "We halt everything until the clerk confirms status." My voice came out steady because it had to. I dialed the number printed on the screen. "Put me on speaker," I told the officiant. He nodded and set the tablet on the rail. A hold tune chattered from the small speaker. I watched the doorway and counted my breaths. 3 rings later, a clerk answered with a crisp hello. "We are reviewing a suspect submission for this ceremony." Her keyboard clacked like a metronome under pressure. She asked for confirmation codes and 2 numbers. I read the string printed under the upload pane. She paused, then gave a very careful exhale. This was pushed from a kiosk near our main desk. "Earliest appointment now attached to that document." "Flag it and freeze the record," I said. "Note identity interference under pending investigation." "I can annotate and lock editing for 24 hours. Her tone sharpened as she typed fast. "After that, I need a formal affidavit." "You will have it by noon," I meant it. The call ended and the room breathed again. I turned to Mark and held out my palm. "Wallet and identification right now." He reached into his inner pocket without protest. I photographed his card next to my own. I added the officiant's business card for scale. We attached these to the affidavit with timestamps. Mark swallowed and tucked his wallet back slowly. His eyes tracked the hallway like trouble might return. Trouble did not knock, trouble marched. She reappeared at the back with 2 relatives. They held garment bags like flags before a parade. One waved and aimed a phone directly at us. "Smile," she sang, too bright for the corridor's hush. Not another step, my hand lifted before I knew it. The venue lead moved with me like a shadow. "This area is closed to non-participants." Linda blinked as if the rule did not apply. "Family assists during rehearsal, always." "Assistance requires clearance," the lead folded her arms. "Clearance revoked due to ongoing interference." "No one is interfering," she trilled with perfect innocence. I opened the county portal on the tablet again. Then explained the altered filing that mirrors my identity. Her jaw twitched, a small betraying muscle. Technical errors happen, county systems lag. You were at the kiosk 30 minutes ago. The lead's eyes flicked to a timestamp on the screen. The relatives shifted, suddenly quiet and watchful. Mark stepped forward before I asked him to stop involving other people in our paperwork. His voice cut through the tension like a blade. The relatives dropped their eyes to the floor. Linda's smile cracked at the corners. Escort them to the lobby, the lead signaled staff. The relatives moved first without argument. Linda held her position 2 beats too long. Step now or I call building security, the lead warned. She pivoted and left footprints made of silence. I turned back to the efficient and kept it clinical. We will proceed with procession staging only. No vows, no declarations, no paperwork imitation. He nodded and opened to a blank rehearsal page. Couple at the front, musicians on count 3. We walked the path at half speed to test spacing. My heart landed every beat where it needed to. At the turn, my phone vibrated with a new message. Subject line read notice of contract termination in block letters. My stomach tightened because sabotage found in angles. I opened the email with my thumb steady. The venue appeared listed as sender of record. The body referenced unpaid balances that did not exist. A forwarding trail exposed a different origin address. A cousin of his had initiated a cancellation request. I showed the lead and kept my voice low. She scanned the thread and lifted a brow. Not our letterhead, not our address. Still damages my bookings if vendors panic. She nodded once and prepared a broadcast update. All teams, disregard any cancellations posing as venue. Her voice rolled down the hall through a handheld. Communications will bear a passphrase starting now. She turned to me and waited for a word. I chose a phrase only we would remember. Use Granite Sparrow, I said it cleanly. She typed it into the system and pressed send. Phones around us chirped as teams received the key. The corridor regained its steady rhythm like a heartbeat. I hit a wall now, not just a line. My device buzzed again with a new alert. The florist messaged that a third party picked up boutonnieres. I called on speaker so the lead could hear. Describe the person who collected them, I asked. Older woman with confidence and a matching last name. Return the items to the shop immediately. Any pickups require the passphrase Granite Sparrow. A pause, then a relieved laugh through the speaker. Not provided, we will reverse the release now. I thanked them and ended the call with a click. We reset the walk and tested the entrance again. My steps found their mark on the runner's edge. The minister called out counts with crisp numbers. We reached the front without a single hitch. For the first time that day, I felt momentum. Another email arrived before the relief settled. It contained a draft announcement for social media. A caption introduced a surprise ceremony honoring tradition. The attached photo featured Mark framed with his mother. The post time was scheduled for our wedding hour. I forwarded the draft to our counsel with the footage. Then I addressed the room like a foreman on deadline. Any image of us must wait on our written sign-off. Breaches lead to removal from the site and invoice penalties. Murmurs died fast because money talks better than pride. Mark touched my forearm with careful pressure. I will call her and end the post plan. She will escalate, I told him without flinching. He nodded once and put his phone to his ear. His voice stayed calm as he asked for deletion. He listened, then his face changed shape. She claims the account is already queued. Then report the account for impersonation of event details. He did it in 3 taps like he meant it. The screen flashed a confirmation that felt like air. We ran the route one final time to set muscle memory. No speeches, no theatrics, no improvisation from the sidelines. At the pause before the altar, I lifted my chin. Tomorrow this path belongs only to us. He met my eyes and did not look away. The musician gave us our exit cue and we turned. Halfway down the runner, my phone pulsed again. A private message arrived from an unknown profile. 2 words glowed in the notification banner. Granite Sparrow with a winking emoji as a threat. I opened the message and typed a bait reply. Wrong phrase, update to Marble Finch by noon. I pressed send and stared at the typing dots. A quick heart reaction popped, smug and careless. They just confirmed they were inside our loop. I waved the coordinator over with 2 fingers. Replace the code now, send to verified teams only. She nodded and pushed the alert through her system. My phone chimed as each vendor acknowledged receipt. Whoever messaged me would expose themselves soon. Mark hovered at my shoulder like he wanted a script. We start forming allies, I told him without sugar. Anyone confused by the new phrase gets cut. He rubbed his jaw and agreed with a short breath. Good, we finally moved in the same direction. Another ping, same profile. Too late, content is queued. I hit report again and captured the screen. Then I dropped a final hook. Cue whatever you want, cease and desist on the way. We returned to the aisle and reset positions. Musicians waited for a signal I refused to give. I watched the entrance instead of the path. Her cousin lurked there with that nervous smile. He held an envelope like a hot object. Deliveries go to the office, I told him. He glanced around and tried to step past me. Mark blocked him with a single move. Hand it over, he said, voice flat as pavement. The cousin surrendered and looked for an exit. I slit the seal and slid out a printout. A faux ceremony program listed Linda as bride. My name appeared under a line labeled Guest of Honor. Laughter rippled from guests peeking in the doorway. Respect dies fast when a joke gets oxygen. I folded the sheet once and handed it back. Walk this to the shred bin and watch it disappear. He turned red and nodded at the carpet. Also message your contact that distribution is suspended. He left and the entrance quieted like a tide pulling back. My screen flashed a new warning from our cloud drive. An unfamiliar login request from a store near City Hall. I declined and enabled physical key only. Then I revoked trusted devices with 2 taps. Locking doors felt like drawing blood from a stone. The sound tech approached and lifted a finger. Someone tried to route mic audio to a live stream. He showed me a panel with a blinking cue. The target URL contained Linda's initials and a date. I took a photo and made a decision. We will keep the channel hot and feed silence. He grinned and switched the plan as requested. Add a watermark with our attorney's contact. He typed fast and the screen confirmed the overlay. Let her broadcast a warning label instead of vows. I stepped to the chapel mouth and held there. Linda appeared with perfect posture and dry eyes. 2 friends trailed her, mouths tight for the performance. I need a private word with my son. I kept my arms loose because my hands wanted to shake. 3 minutes office, witness present. Her mouth twitched but she followed me inside. Mark took a seat and fixed his gaze on the table. I stood because sitting kills momentum. The coordinator leaned on the doorframe and watched. She opened with, honey, we all want beauty tomorrow. Beauty ends where theft begins, I answered evenly. Cease staging and remove any content featuring us. Her smile crystallized and then cracked. Tradition requires a mother to guide her boy. Tradition doesn't forge documents or hijack our soundboard. She opened her purse and slid a stack across. Reimbursements, I advanced certain costs to keep momentum. I didn't touch the papers, I looked at Mark. Are these charges real and authorized by you? He met my eyes and shook his head once. He turned to her and finally cut clean. Stop purchasing anything in our names, stop today. Her cheeks lifted like she might laugh again. Then she tried a different knife. If she needs control this badly, maybe she isn't ready. The coordinator's spine straightened and the air cooled. Meeting is over, I said and pointed to the door. Return borrowed items or I involve law enforcement. Her gaze sharpened as if she found my soft spot. She aimed at the ring still in his pocket. She already gave that back, why should I step aside? Mark stood, chair legs scraping hard against tile. Because tomorrow I marry her or I marry no one. It landed with a thud none of us could ignore. We cleared the room without another word. In the corridor, I pulled up the clerk's number. Affidavit template please, we file before lunch. She emailed the form within a minute. Witness signatures required 2 impartial parties. The coordinator raised a hand, I will sign. The sound tech nodded from the doorway. We filled fields fast with clean block letters. I attached the screenshots in the fake program. Then I sent the packet like a thrown spear. Outside, the photographer hovered with a cautious stance. Do we scrap couple portraits today? Shoot only logistics and team shots, I told him. Nothing intimate, nothing that can be spun. He lifted the camera and waited like a soldier awaiting orders. We posed with the passphrase board visible between us. Hard proof for vendors, harder proof for any judge. The coordinator read the day's duties into a recorder. Time code stamped each instruction with a bite. We were building a case while rehearsing a wedding. My phone vibrated with a final escalation. A group text fired to relatives with a new update. Ceremony moved, private blessing at earlier hour. A location pin sat on a small chapel 2 blocks away. My jaw clenched because the plan just split in two. She wants a decoy event before ours, Mark muttered. We starve it, I said and opened my contacts. We alerted security to the alternative chapel. Turn away any guests until official schedule resumes. I added a line they would not ignore. Anyone pushing the decoy forfeits invitation to the real ceremony. Security acknowledged with a curt response. Then I pinged the caterer with the new code. Any change must state Marble Finch in the subject. No code, no action, no exceptions. We returned to the aisle for one last pee. As I felt steadier than an hour earlier. Not calmer, just committed. I took position and let the entrance music breathe. He took my hand without glancing toward the doors. Halfway down, the livestream alert lit again. The overlay displayed exactly as we planned. A phone somewhere captured nothing but legal text. A murmur spread through the back rows like electricity. I did not slow, let them read what boundaries look like. When we reached the front, I set my palm on the rail. Tomorrow we follow our script only. No substitutes, no shadows, no unauthorized blessings. Mark nodded once, jaw set and eyes clear. A knock hit the side door like a gavel and everything paused. I opened the side door and a deputy stepped in. Badge, clipboard, neutral face. Who filed the interference notice? His tone meant business. I did. I raised my phone with the evidence folder. Then we verify identities right now. He checked our documents with quick movements. Any person disrupting these proceedings gets trespass warnings. Name them clearly for the record. I listed 2 relatives and Linda. He wrote each name like a nail in wood. A thud echoed from the lobby and cut through us. We followed the sound and found Knocktober stanchions. Linda stood beyond the rope with a borrowed sash. Family-only blessing before the venue run. The deputy lifted a palm and blocked her path. This area is restricted to the couple and staff. Her eyes stayed bright but her shoulders stiffened. I have guest rights, ceremony involves both families. Guest status removed under active investigation. He pointed to the exit and waited without blinking. She tried a softer trick and cupped her voice. Give me 5 minutes with my son. 3 minutes with both of us, I countered fast. Under supervision with the recorder running. She nodded once and took those terms like a dare. Inside the office, she set a folder on the desk. Sign this adjustment for a unity ritual. Show me the source and the vendor authorization. She slid a typed page with a small logo. I zoomed in and found a misprinted address. Forgery again, I pushed it back untouched. Her hands twitched and the axe slipped. Some ceremonies evolve overnight, she tried thin. Not ours, Mark cut in with a steady face. All changes closed at noon yesterday. She leaned toward him and lowered her chin. You are abandoning heritage under pressure. I am choosing my partner under pressure. He did not flinch, which mattered more than words. She stared like she did not recognize the man. A vibration buzzed through my phone with an emergency tone. Fire alarm pulled at the decoy chapel 2 blocks away. She moved the crowd, I whispered as the room stilled. The deputy checked his radio for confirmation. No smoke, false pull, patrol en route. I took the moment and called building security. Seal our entries and check electrical panels. Confirm locks on the A and C doors. The reply came calm and quick. All locked, extra guard posted until rehearsal ends. Back in the hall, the band leader waved me over. Payment request bounced from the original account. Use the new verified channel I sent. He nodded and showed me the transfer clearing. Sabotage tried to starve the music and failed. My device pinged again with a scheduled post notice. A second account had queued a clip of vows. The thumbnail showed a close-up of intertwined hands. I scrubbed the frame and recognized Linda's bracelet. She had recorded earlier during our first run. Pull all captured audio from the soundboard cache. The tech opened a panel and isolated timestamps. We exported the fragments with legal headers. Tag the clip as unauthorized reproduction. The overlay stamped across the footage like a shield. In the nave, a murmur swelled near the entry doors. A freelance blogger flashed a press badge at the usher. Rumor says surprise union before the main event. Private rehearsal, no public content authorized. I stepped between them and held up the passphrase board. Verify this before you publish anything. He read, he faltered, he pocketed the camera. Exclusive later if I leave now. Exclusive interview if you verify permissions later. He backed away and the temperature dropped a notch. Another door opened and the clerk walked in herself. She carried a stamped affidavit and a folder. Your filing is frozen with a fraud alert. We will require your in-person signatures now. Pens scratched, boxes ticked. The deputy witnessed every mark. Next step, I looked at the clerk without delay. Any attempt to reactivate the spoof gets flagged. Correct, she confirmed with a steady gaze. Electronic attempts route directly to my desk. Finally, a boundary with teeth. We returned to the front as families drifted back inside. People watched my face like weather readers. Linda hovered near the pews with two quiet allies. I felt the ice sitting in the air like a stone. Yield and get peace, push and get freedom. I nodded to the minister and set the next test. Run the entry with ushers and parents only. No blessings, no readings, no surprises. Mark offered his arm and we moved to position. The room split into silence and expectation. At the halfway mark, Linda stepped into the aisle. Her heel caught the runner and skidded once. She recovered fast and lifted both hands. I will place a token on my son. My stomach clenched at the line she would cross. The deputy advanced with measured steps and quiet authority. Do not approach the couple during rehearsal. This is a final warning under posted rules. She froze and looked past him at the crowd. Applause would have given her cover and she knew it. Nobody clapped. Noise fell away like a pulled plug. She lowered the token and stepped back one pace. The deputy met her eyes and held until she blinked. Control returned to the center where it belonged. We finished the walk and stopped at the rail. I faced Mark and opened my hand. He placed the ring back on my palm. Tomorrow at the real hour, he whispered. I slid it on as cameras stayed down. The lead approached with a discreet envelope. Vendors signed the Code of Conduct addendum. Breaches carry financial penalties payable today. I initialed the line and passed it to Mark. Consequences make miracles when kindness fails. A final alert hit my screen with a chill. A cousin created a new group thread titled Ceremony Swap. Location change, new timeline, special entrance for mother and son. They were building a counterfeit event next door. I felt the ground tilt and then I steadied. Kill the decoy by starving it of people. I opened the guest list and filtered by swing voters. Send one message from us with the verified hour. Include the passphrase and the signature from the venue. We crafted it clean and pressed send together. Responses rolled in like a tide turning fast. Got it, staying here, ignoring the other text. Relief did not soften me, it sharpened me. Because the next move would cost more than pride. When cornered, she always reached for something bigger. The minister cleared his throat and closed his folder. Rehearsal complete for today. All parties dismissed under the updated rules. People stood slow as if waking from a dream. At the door, the deputy waited with one last notice. He handed Linda a formal trespass warning. The words were dry and final. Any further disruption results in removal and charges. She accepted the paper with fingers that did not tremble. Her eyes moved from me to Mark and back with a new calculation. She turned without speaking and left through the lobby. The false procession followed her like a weak tide. I watched them go and felt my pulse even out. Not calm, ready. Because she had one play left and we had just removed it. I locked the venue door and my screen lit with a rideshare alert. Pickup scheduled under his name with a different destination. Cancel it, I said before panic gathered. He checked his app and found nothing there. A shadow reservation through a linked calendar, of course. I called the driver and asked for the passenger name. He read a nickname we never use. Ride is terminated by the account holder. I recorded his confirmation and hung up fast. Someone wanted him delivered to a new stage. We crossed the courtyard toward the lot in silence. A sedan idled with hazards and a bouquet on the dash. The door cracked and a cousin waved him over. Quick blessing at the chapel down the block. I stepped between them and held up the affidavit. Clerk froze the license, no side rights allowed. The cousin's smile wilted into something less brave. She promised it would be fast. She promised a lot, I said and pointed away. He backed off and the sedan rolled out slow. My phone buzzed with a banking push. A refund request attempted on our deposit. I hit decline and opened the vendor portal. A new user tried to claim administrator status. I revoked access and enabled a rotating phrase. Codeword is Iron Comet starting now. I broadcast it to verified contacts only. Replies chimed like a guarded chorus. Anyone who stumbled would expose themselves. We had a litmus test and a clock. The deputy met us at the curb with an update. She asked for a police escort to the decoy site. On what basis? My throat went dry then steady. Family emergency, he answered while checking notes. We declined and flagged the call ID. We headed to the hotel to change and regroup. The elevator doors slid open on two familiar faces. Her friends dressed sharp and carrying garment bags. We're here to help with fittings, one announced. Access closed to vendors only, I answered and held the door. They tried to wedge in with a practiced shuffle. Mark lifted a hand with quiet finality. Not tonight, his voice carried like a low Zked bolt. They stepped back and exchanged tight glances. Nothing burns like a plan meeting a wall. In our room, I set two phones on the dresser. Airplane mode for both until we control the pipeline. He powered down and exhaled like a slow release. This is a lot, he said, eyes on the floor. It will be more tomorrow if we slip once. A new notification slid across my laptop. Calendar invite labeled mother-son entrance rehearsal. Location pinged the hotel ballroom downstairs. Time set for 15 minutes from now. She did not need the chapel to stage a show. We took the service stairs and hit the second level. Music thumped behind a closed partition. I cracked the door and saw a dozen relatives circling. She stood centered with a ribbon and a speech card. A pocket officiant adjusted his tie near the stage. Room is booked by another client, I said from the threshold. The event manager appeared behind me like backup. Correct, she confirmed with a firm nod. Unscheduled gatherings must disperse this minute. The pocket officiant tucked his book and looked for air. Linda lifted the ribbon, as if the order meant nothing. Blessing first, cameras rolling, family needs closure. Mark walked forward and stopped just outside her reach. End this, he told her without quiver. The relatives watched him as if he had grown taller. The manager clicked a handheld and summoned security. Shut down for trespass risk, she stated into the mic. Two guards arrived and opened a side exit. The group shifted, then started filing out. She lingered and tried one more gambit. Your father would want this, she whispered at him. The words hit like thrown gravel. His jaw worked and then set hard. My father wanted honesty, he answered without theatrics. He hated theater dressed as duty. She flinched for the first time all day. The ribbon sagged and the camera lowered. One ally reached for her elbow with shaky fingers. They left without turning back. The door latched and the room exhaled. We sat on the stage edge and let silence settle. Do we postpone? He asked like he feared the answer. We go forward with boundaries and paperwork, I said. Postponing rewards the siege. He nodded and I saw decision root. Back upstairs, my laptop pinged again. A new email offered a courthouse slot at dawn. Sender lines spoofed the county domain cleverly. I forwarded it to the clerk with one sentence. Confirm fraud and log the header. Her reply arrived in under a minute. Fraud confirmed, source traced to hotel guest network. That detail chilled me because it meant proximity. I copied the message to the deputy on duty. He typed back fast with a plan. Provide the room number if it can isolate. I called the front desk and requested network support. They traced the MAC address to a floor above ours. Room assigned to a cousin we recognized. Security moved before the trail cooled. We waited in the corridor while keys rattled upstairs. A guard radioed down with a short report. Found printed programs and a portable hotspot. The items went into evidence bags for later. I felt the first real shift toward safety. A sharp knock landed on our door like a drum. I checked the peephole and saw the deputy again. One more thing, he said with a clipped tone. She scheduled a wellness check on you at midnight. My spine stiffened because that stunt can escalate fast. Cancel it and note malicious intent, I answered. Also log caller as potential harasser. He made the entry while I watched the screen. Done, dispatch will ignore further attempts tonight. He left us with a quiet nod and a tired look. We finally ate something small and practical. I felt each bite like a decision to keep going. My phone stayed dark by choice and discipline. He reached across the table and waited for permission. I let him hold my hand because presence beats speeches. Before sleep, I changed the code word again. New phrase is Ember Crown until we step into makeup. He repeated it and locked it in. Our allies confirmed receipt with single check marks. Short confirmations beat flowery promises when pressure rises. The alarm dragged us into morning like a tug. A text blinked on the lock screen with fresh poison. Emergency family blessing at sunrise, mandatory attendance. I replied with one photo of the trespass notice. No attendance, attempt removal triggers charges. We arrived at the venue while the city yawned. The manager met us with coffee and a checklist. Power checks complete, network segmented, doors logged. She handed me a small fob labeled with our names. Only this opens the back entrance today. Vendors filtered through security in measured waves. Each one recited the code word without hesitation. Anyone who stumbled went to a holding area. We lost 2 deliveries in the first hour. Both traced back to her network of helpers. The hairstylist approached with a quick bow. Received a last-minute style change from an unknown email. I pulled up the screenshot and recognized a pattern. Same structure, ignore, use the plan on file. She nodded and rolled her cart toward the prep room. An usher hustled in with a pale face. She is outside with a sign asking to speak. Do not engage, I told him and stood. We watched from the office window while she pleaded to the crowd. Security formed a calm wall and kept space. She held up the old fake program like proof. A relative filmed her from a careful angle. I put my palm on the glass and counted slowly. Mark joined me without a word and matched the count. We stepped back together when the camera found us. I opened the group thread with the guests. Doors open per schedule, ignore outside noise. Violations result in removal and loss of entry. He added a single line that made my chest warm. I stand with my partner, see you inside. Outside, she tried a final pivot to sympathy. She reached for tears that did not seem to arrive. The crowd shifted and refused the cue. A few turned away and walked toward our entrance. Momentum is a quiet thing until it roars. The deputy radioed in with one last update. Restraining order request filed, judge available at noon. Serve it at the door if granted, I replied. He confirmed and headed to the courthouse with the file. We had moved from defense to enforcement. I headed to the prep room and closed the latch. My hands shook only once, then steadied again. Today we marry under our script, I whispered. He touched his collar and gave a small nod. A shadow crossed the threshold and the hinges complained. The manager appeared holding a sealed envelope. Courier dropped this 15 seconds ago. The outside bore a printed crest with no return. I broke the seal because waiting invites chaos. Inside lay a contract signing him over as host. The clause handed rights to a third party for photographs. The signature line carried his name in a neat slant. I flipped it and saw a watermark from a boutique agency. This would weaponize our own images against us. He stared at the curves of the forged stroke. "Burn it in the sink," I said and meant it. The manager nodded and did it without drama. Paper curled and blackened as water hissed. Gone but not forgotten. Because she would try again before the vows. I cracked the prep room door and caught movement in the hallway. A figure in lace turned the corner with brisk steps. A veil draped low enough to hide the face. Two helpers flanked her and whispered directions. They headed straight for the staging area with purpose. "Block that entrance," I told the coordinator on comms. She answered with one word and moved her team. I watched the trio approach the security rope. The center figure lifted a bouquet like a pass. The guard held a palm up and did not budge. "Bride is here for her walkthrough," the voice was bright. A tilt of the chin gave her away before the veil. Linda tried to sweep past as if space obeyed. The helpers echoed her line with practiced cheer. Their confidence fed the unsure guests watching nearby. I stepped into view and let her clock me. No shouting, just one raised eyebrow and a nod. The guard checked my wristband and opened a gap. I entered the buffer zone and faced my rival. Behind the veil, she smiled like this was checkmate. "Remove the cover," I said and kept my tone cool. She paused, then pinched the edge with 2 fingers. The reveal had the rhythm of theater, not ceremony. Her eyes glittered with victory that had not happened. I stayed quiet and let people see the swap. A murmur rippled down the pews like static building. The officiant stood ready yet held his place. Mark appeared at the side door with squared shoulders. He glanced once at me and once at her. His jaw flexed as the room waited for him. "I am the one taking the vows," he stated. He used no flourish, he used spine. Linda laughed softly and reached for his sleeve. Her nails grazed fabric but found no grip. He stepped back and let the gap widen. "Escort her to the lobby," I told security evenly. "Not yet," she lifted a folded paper like a shield. "Blessing authorization signed by the couple last month." I took the page without touching her hand. The font spacing betrayed a cut and paste job. I held it up so the front row could see. The minister peered over his glasses at the header. "Document uses the retired seal," he observed sharply. "Current forms include a barcode below the title." A collective breath tightened as her bluff sagged. She tried pivoting to tears and missed the landing. "My only child deserves a welcome before the oath." A cousin rose as if to back her play. The deputy entered from the side aisle like a wall. He positioned himself between her and the dais. "Notice served at noon," he informed her calmly. "Any interference triggers immediate removal and charges." He tapped the badge camera with one finger. "This feed runs to dispatch and the judge." Silence pressed in while she recalculated her path. She dropped the crumpled paper and changed tactics fast. "Then let me stand behind them for family support." I met her eyes and shook my head once. "Your presence behind me becomes a signal, not support." She knew I was right and hated that truth. The coordinator gestured discreetly from the wing. "Musicians are ready and guests are seated." I nodded and took my mark at the doorway. Mark joined me and fixed his tie with calm hands. We were a unit again, visible and undeniable. Linda slid sideways and tried a flanking route. She aimed for the side corridor that led to the rail. A junior usher shifted to block without fuss. He lifted a small sign with clear lettering. "Access restricted to couple and essential staff only." She showed claws for the first time all day. "You are replacing tradition with corporate rules." I let the words pass through me like wind. Tradition without consent is control in a costume. Her mouth flattened at the word consent and stayed thin. A phone screen lit behind her shoulder with a countdown. A relative whispered about going live in 30 seconds. I raised my hand to the sound tech by the wall. He toggled a switch that fed a legal overlay again. If they streamed our warning instead. "Begin the processional," the officiant called with resolve. Music swelled and the doors inched open on cue. I felt my lungs steady as the path appeared. We moved forward while eyes tracked every step. Her figure lingered at the rope like a storm refusing to leave. Halfway down, a child darted from a pew giggling. He grabbed at the train of the decoy gown. Fabric snagged and yanked the veil sideways. Her face flashed full to the crowd without filter. Gasps sliced the hush as recognition landed like a blow. Linda froze and then lunged to fix the mess. A friend reached to help and fumbled the pins. The guard reset the distance with one strong arm. Mark kept our pace and refused to turn. I matched him and refused to break rhythm. At the front, the minister lifted a hand for quiet. Before we proceed, we acknowledge the court's notice. He read the restraint terms in a neutral cadence. All parties comply or leave, clear, simple. A few relatives stared at their shoes and stayed mute. Do you need a pause? The minister asked softly to us. I glanced at Mark and read steel, not doubt. We go forward per schedule, I answered without wobble. He nodded and faced the officiant squarely. We had kept the center while the edges burned. Linda tried one last subtle move from the aisle. She mouthed words at the photographer and pointed up. He met my eye, then shook his head once. Our earlier contract addendum held like a lifeline. Images would not betray us today. The deputy stepped closer to her and spoke quietly. Your choice now determines how you exit. She looked around and found fewer friendly faces. The crowd had grown tired of the theater. Her shoulders fell a fraction as reality landed. She retreated 2 paces and lowered the bouquet. Her allies drifted back toward the lobby like tide. The guard unclipped a path to remove them cleanly. No jeers, no victory laps, just consequence. I watched without blinking until the corridors swallowed them. The minister cleared his throat and opened the booklet. Rights resume with the declaration of intent. He asked the first question and waited in the quiet. Mark answered with a voice I trusted. I answered with mine and felt something lock in. We skipped anything that could be harvested or twisted. No staged exchanges, no borrowed symbols, no unnecessary flourishes. Just clean promises with witnesses leaning forward. The room softened but did not slacken. Everyone knew we were not safe yet. 3 knocks landed on the main doors mid-ceremony. Security moved fast and sealed the latch from inside. The deputy checked his radio and returned a nod. Delivery attempt denied, outside party refused to leave. I pictured a last-minute prop waiting to ambush the moment. Continue, I said to the minister and meant it. My hands were steady for the first time all weekend. He lifted the ring question and waited for us. Mark reached into his pocket and found empty air. My heart stuttered as the room held its breath. He looked at me and then at the usher. The usher patted his vest and came up blank. I reached to my wrist and unclasped a thin band. Use this now, we switched to the real ring later. He took it with a grateful nod that needed no tag. We finished the exchange without theatrics or delay. The minister sealed the moment with a simple blessing. No grand speeches, no open mic, no stage tears. Just enough to count in the eyes of the law. A buzz cut through the air like a blade on rope. The deputy raised his hand for patience and spoke low. Order granted, paperwork signed, service authorized. He gestured to the lobby where an officer waited. Linda stood there pale and still, holding nothing. The envelope opened and the terms became real. Escort her beyond the property line, the deputy instructed. Maintain distance and record compliance. I watched the procession through the glass with measured breath. She walked without resistance and never looked back. I understood the cost and felt no glow. The minister asked for the recessional cue in a whisper. I nodded and took a careful step toward the aisle. Mark squeezed my fingers and held for a beat. His eyes asked if I was ready to cross. I was ready to finish what we started. We reached the doorway while guests rose in waves. Phones stayed lowered under the new rules. A few smiles trembled like animals leaving a storm. We paused at the threshold to let security clear sightlines. A shadow shifted near the coat rack with intent. A cousin sidled close with a tiny box. From her final gift, she wants peace. I stared at the lid and heard the trap hum. Open it for the camera first, I instructed coolly. The lid lifted and revealed a tiny recording device. The deputy scanned it and shook his head once. Device stored for evidence, timestamp noted. He slipped it into a bag and sealed the top. The cousin swallowed hard and stepped aside. We had almost been baited back into her script. The coordinator signaled that the exit path was clear. Guests flowed toward the courtyard in an even stream. I felt the pressure release but not vanish. This was not triumph, this was survival done right. And I knew one last wave still waited outside. We stepped into the courtyard and the chant started. Blessing now, a cluster pressed toward the gate. Phones lifted like a forest of excuses. Security formed a wedge and held the line tight. I braced because noise is just cover for a grab. A town car rolled up fast and blocked the exit. White paint on the window read "Just joined" in tape. Two cousins jumped out and opened the back door. Linda sat inside with a mic clipped to her lapel. "One statement for our family's honor," she announced. The deputy lifted his badge and pointed down the street. "Order served, you are violating it already." She craned her neck and spoke louder to the crowd. "My son has chosen a path that erases his heritage." The mic cracked as if it hated the sentence. I moved to the curb and kept my voice level. "This event is over for you, leave now." She ignored me and held up a certificate. An embossed seal glinted under the camera flashes. "Proxy ceremony completed this morning," she declared. The clerk appeared beside the deputy like a triggered trap. She held a ledger and a stamp in one hand. "That paper is not from our office. Barcode is counterfeit and key fields are wrong." The crowd shifted as certainty drained from them. Linda looked past the clerk at Mark and aimed higher. "You can still fix this with one blessing. Walk to me, let them film your respect." He didn't move, he took one step toward me instead. The chant sputtered and then died on the pavement. She switched tactics hard and grabbed at sympathy. "I am not the villain here," she pleaded to lenses. "It's modern decay," she poisoned him against roots. The microphone squealed as the deputy reached forward. Equipment confiscated under the order, handed over. She clutched the mic and the cord snapped. Audio cut, her mouth moved but nothing traveled. The cousins hesitated, then took a careful step back. Without sound, the performance felt small and brittle. You could hear guests choosing how to leave. The photographer hustled to me with urgent eyes. Her account posted a clip from inside. Caption says she saved the day. I opened the link and watched 10 seconds load. Our overlay flooded the frame with council details. I held the screen up for the last undecided cousins. That post triggers removal of every asset she owns. Lawyers tomorrow, bills today. Two hands dropped phones like hot stones. Money talks when love fails too. The car reversed with a lurch and clipped a planter. Metal shrieked, gasps popped, heads spun. No one was hurt but attention snapped hard. She flinched and lost the audience for good. The driver gunned it and vanished at the light. We used the gap and moved to the side exit. Guests followed our lead like water finding slop. I glanced back and caught her standing alone. She stared at Mark with an expression I could not read. Then she turned and walked toward a taxi without drama. Inside the hall, the coordinator met us with a set jaw. "Reception begins on the revised timeline. Vendors stationed and ready under the new code." I nodded and checked my phone for fresh fires. Only one alert blinked with a half-threat. The anonymous profile sent 3 words and a dot. "See you soon," then nothing. I archived it and reported the account again. Fear loves ambiguity, evidence loves names. I chose evidence and moved. We walked into the room and applause rose. Not wild, firm. I felt my shoulders lower one notch. Mark squeezed my hand with a quiet pulse. We crossed the floor we almost never reached. The officiant tapped the mic once and kept it brief. 2 people promised each other courage. Let us honor that. No speeches from us, no toast she could twist. Only a shared breath and the first measured steps. Halfway through the song, a server hurried over. "Pardon, a delivery is insisting on access. Refused code, claims urgent family parcel. Route them to the office," I instructed. The deputy trailed behind with a patient face. We opened the box under the camera with gloves. Inside lay a photo album with printed captions. Each page framed Mark and Linda at milestones. A last page weighted with blank squares for today. Her handwriting begged for one image to fill the gap. Mark traced the empty boxes without touching ink. She wants a relic to feed the story, he murmured. Do we give one picture to end this? Give nothing now, I answered steady. Boundaries without tribute, closure without props. He closed the album and set it aside. I felt something unclench in my chest. He was choosing practice over apology theater. The deputy logged the item and sealed the bag. Evidence continued to outpace nostalgia. The band shifted songs and the room warmed. A relative approached with wet eyes and careful words. I stayed because you kept telling the truth. She lifted her arms and asked with a glance. I nodded and accepted a short, solid embrace. Halfway through dessert, the clerk waved at me from the door. Quick note, court flagged a second filing attempt. Someone tried to attach a witness statement to the fake. Rejected, logged, forwarded to your counsel. Even in celebration, the machine kept grinding. Mark looked at me with a question that mattered. Do we invite her to counseling after the dust? Invite will be for a boundary session only. One professional, 1 hour, no cameras. If she refuses, we live with distance. He nodded and I saw relief, not regret. Loyalty had found a new channel that did not drown us. We were not carving her out. We were carving us free. There is a difference you feel in your bones. The deputy returned once more with a crisp envelope. Proof of service recorded and uploaded. Violation log compiled with timestamps. Call if any further approach occurs tonight. I signed the acknowledgement and slipped it into our file. Guests formed a line to say their short pieces. None of them offered speeches disguised as knives. People kept it lean because they had watched the cost. I appreciated that restraint more than flowers. Respect sometimes sounds like fewer words. Near the end, a small hand tugged my sleeve. The same child who had yanked the wrong veil. Is it over now? He asked with huge concern. Almost, I answered and ruffled his hair. Last boss down, credit soon, he laughed and ran. We stepped onto the terrace for air and quiet. City noise carried a normal rhythm that soothed. I checked the gate and saw no watchers. Only cabs and tired feet and a sky that didn't care. The world had other stories tonight. Mark leaned on the rail and exhaled for real. I am sorry for every time I froze. Freezing is over, I told him and meant it. Next time we move together before the first cut. He nodded and slid his ring into place properly. Back inside, the staff began packing with efficient grace. No broken gear, no missing cases, no angry whispers. The coordinator handed me a clipboard with final checks. All invoices cleared, all signatures safe. She smiled like someone who had seen worse and won. My phone lit one last time with a blocked number. I answered because endings deserve clarity. A thin voice breathed once and then spoke. I wanted him to thank me once, Linda whispered. The line clicked dead before I could answer. I stared at the screen and let the silence hold. Not triumph, not bitterness, just truth hard as tile. I had wanted easy once. I had gotten honest instead. Honest lasts longer than applause. We left through the staff hallway after the lights dimmed. The fob beeped and the door eased shut behind us. I turned the key in the last lock and pocketed it. Mark took my hand and matched my stride. We stepped in. Oh, our night without her script.